Our protagonist, a young boy named Haruto, faces the hardest challenge of his short life so far, saying goodbye to his neighborhood girlfriend. With tears overflowing down their tiny faces, they swear to get married someday. Ah, young love, what a joke. Years pass and Haruto is now a university student with new hopes and dreams. While traveling on the bus, one fateful day, he is met with a tragic end when a train smashes into the vehicle, killing everyone on board. That shit came out of nowhere. When our MC regains consciousness, he realizes that he is in a strange cellar, and even weirder is the fact that he does not recognize who he is anymore. His own hands seem alien to him and his memories are fogged up with those of someone else. Grabbing his head in his hands, he suffers an existential crisis. We've all been there, haven't we? He manages to decipher that his name is Ryo before he is interrupted by the appearance of a group of ruffians who stare at him with disgust. Although he can barely stand due to his hunger, the men do not invite him to the table to share their food and instead insult him by saying that he stinks and that he should leave. Once outside, Ryo cannot help but gobble on some wild berries before he is once again interrupted by a few ladies who also refuse to come near him due to his stench. They inquire if he has seen a girl with purple hair, but their rude behavior makes the boy ignore them. One of the girls named Celia steps forward and addresses him with kindness, but he is unable to offer any information since he is still trying to understand what universe he has landed in. Is this what a hangover feels like? Celia then performs a spell to locate any signs of magic in the vicinity, which results in Ryo glowing blue. Turns out our MC is filled with magical ability. Finally, a rare W for our boy. Once the women leave to search other areas for the purple-haired girl, Ryo returns to the cellar where he narrowly dies for the second time in a matter of hours. An assassin with a knife has slaughtered all the men who were mocking our MC, and Ryo would have been next, if not for his ability to perform magic. He dodges every attack thrown at him, and with his one opportunity, breaks the assailant's arm and knocks him out. The boy then notices a bag in the corner of the cellar, which appears to be moving on its own. Upon untying it, he finds the purple-haired girl, who passes out when she catches sight of all the dead bodies in the cellar. Ryo carries the girl back to the ladies, but instead of thanking him, he is accused of kidnapping her and is taken back to the castle for questioning. Shitload of good it did him to show some kindness. The world really is a place. Back at the castle, he is beaten with a baton by the head of the guards, who is intent upon forcing the boy to admit that he was the one behind the kidnapping. Fortunately, Ryo stays strong and takes the beating like a man. No feminists were harmed during the formation of that sentence. His torture comes to an end when the purple-haired girl named Flora regains consciousness and reveals how Ryo was the one who saved her. He is removed from the dungeon and Celia heals all of his wounds with her medicinal magic. She then makes sure that he receives a proper makeover and a change of clothes before he is summoned to the courtroom for a meeting with the king himself. A hush falls over the room as Ryo, with a decent haircut and formal clothing, enters. Talk about top 10 coldest anime entrances. Celia has prepared Ryo well regarding how to talk to royalty, and the king is quite impressed by him. After thanking the boy for his gallant deed in saving his daughter, he offers to enroll Ryo in the Royal Academy, free of charge. Our MC has never received a proper education, so this opportunity is too precious for him to let down, and he accepts. Celia takes him under her wing and vows to tutor all of his shortcomings. She also warns him that the rest of the students are from royal families, so they may treat him as an outcast. But this is nothing new for our protagonist, and he adapts to his new classroom life. His peers are a bunch of entitled pricks who view him with disgust simply because he is a commoner. So despite his kind attitude, he has no friends, and most of his free time is spent either in the library studying or getting tutored by Celia. Fun fact: Celia is only 12 and is already teaching an entire classroom of students. She skipped a couple of grades and even graduated high school at such a young age. Don't let my mom hear of this. She would never let me live in peace ever again. Prodigies, ruining life for the rest of us. Memories of his past life as Haruto are linked with his current experiences, which is why Ryo is able to do division quite easily once he learns the native language of the people there. His talents are not confined to the classroom, as he shows off his skills in swordsmanship as well. The instructor calls him out of line and has a one-on-one sparring match with the boy in which Ryo impresses the man. Apparently, Haruto was also training in the same art, which is why it feels natural for our MC. None of the students of his class can bear to see a mere commoner doing well, particularly when he manages to come first in his class in the annual examination. A certain loud-mouthed little bastard even accuses the boy of cheating and changing the results. Celia has to intervene and vouch that she has seen Rio burning the midnight oil on more than one occasion. Although Rio is a year younger than Celia, the two share a very close bond. She becomes his only friend and advisor, and it stays that way for the next 5 years. Our boy finally gets his growth spurt and is now taller than Celia. He has also been selected for the local sword fighting competition, where he is competing against none other than Charles, the guard who had tortured him when he was first taken to the castle. Our MC is too hot to handle and defeats the sorry excuse of a knight, shocking the crowd. Although Charles tries to explain that he was not ready, everyone knows that the guard just got his ass handed to him on a plate. After his victory, Celia wishes to personally congratulate him, but is devastated when she spies that another girl of his class has given him a love letter. She cannot help but feel heartbroken as she realizes that her feelings for the boy are much more than just friendship. What is worse is that she knows Rio is planning to move abroad after graduation, and their time together is fast coming to an end. Since the students of Beltram Royal Academy have now reached the 6th year of their education, Celia has now begun much more complex demonstrations of magic. It is common knowledge that Rio lacks the expertise to perform any spells, and when the topic is brought up, all of his peers snicker in his direction. Celia is clearly pissed and brings out two boys, who are the main antagonists in bullying Rio. She asks them to demonstrate a lightning spell, which they manage to do successfully. However, Celia points out that their enchantment still needs a lot of work and shows off her own version of the spell, which lights up the entire class. No wonder a minor like her is already a teacher. Somebody smuggle me the titty milk she drank when she was a baby. I'm about to become Megamind. Although Rio is unable to conjure a spell by the normal technique, he still manages to form tiny lightning orbs under his desk. Celia notices this, but does not comment other than passing him a warm smile. The next test for the students of Celia's class is centered around their physical prowess in the forest. They would be attacked by various creatures and would have to defeat them to pass this examination. Although it is supposed to be a team exercise, the two bullies of the class take leadership and begin barking out orders. One of them reveals that they have fed wrong directions to the other teams, so victory is more or less guaranteed for them. A much older Flora and her sisters are also part of this team, and they cannot help but think that all these dirty tricks count as cheating. Obviously, the bullies are bound to make life tough for our MC, and they give him the most laborious of all tasks, carrying everyone's luggage on his shoulders. Rio should just air blast these two shit stains into outer space and end the disrespect. But he is way too gentle for that and quietly accepts his responsibility. Flora, who has still not forgotten how the boy saved her all those years ago, offers to help him with the burden, but he refuses the aid. Their first test is against a few goblins, which the students easily annihilate. Unknowest to them, they are being watched from the trees by a hooded man who was behind Flora's kidnapping years ago. His interest is particularly in Rio and wishes to see what abilities the boy is hiding. Next up in the examination is a group of orcs. These prove to be a much tougher test as they are immune to most spells and their strikes are quite deadly as well. One of the bullies suffers a scratch and begins wailing and running around like a lunatic. He accidentally knocks into Flora, who falls over the edge of the cliff and would have certainly met her end, if not for Rio, who jumps down and using his magic, pushes her back to safety. Once the princesses knock out the orcs, they all rush to check on Flora and realize that Rio has fallen down the cliffside. The bully who was at fault blames the boy for running into him and even suggests that killing Flora might have been part of his plan. Their devious scheming is interrupted by the appearance of a huge minotaur, which sends every student screaming in different directions. Flora is left behind since she is healing one of her classmates when the minotaur suddenly notices her. It would have been lights out for Little Miss Royalty if Rio did not rescue her once again. Slicing the creature's arm clean off, he exchanges blows with the minotaur and finally ends the battle by beheading it. He then realizes that the majority of his class assumes that he is a traitor and decides that it would be better if he disappeared right now instead of waiting for his graduation. This proves to be the smartest idea, as later that day, the headmaster announces that Rio cannot be trusted and Flora's close shave with death would be blamed on him. He also gives responsibility for tracking the boy down to Duke Huguenot, the bully of Rio's class. Later that night, Rio sneaks into Celia's room and reveals that he would be returning to the land where his parents belong. To avoid capture, he would use the alias of Haruto and vows to keep in contact with the girl. They share a loving embrace before our MC leaves for his journey. Ryo's first stop is in the kingdom of Galark, where he replenishes his supplies. Since it is at quite a distance from Beltrum, news of his supposed crimes has not reached here yet, so he is able to move around freely. Noticing a food stand where noodles are being made, he has a moment of déjà vu as he tries to recall the last time he had seen the dish. Every bite of the spaghetti is like a mouthful of nostalgia since he used to enjoy it in his past life as well. The owner of the food stand directs him to a merchant guild where he would be able to purchase all the supplies he needs for his trip. Galark seems to be way more developed than other kingdoms in this world since their guild is well run and has almost every product under the sky. Our MC is helped by a young girl named Lot who collects all of the food stuff he needs and even offers him a room to rest in. Unknowns to him, Lot is actually the ruler of the kingdom and is simply helping him out of the goodness of her heart. Once everything has been collected, Ryo restarts his journey. However, it is not long before he has to stop once again as he has spotted the body of a young child in the forest. He rushes to help her up, but it is clearly a trap as the girl suddenly opens her eyes and slashes at him with a dagger. She then pricks him with a needle which is poisoned, and our MC begins to feel woozy. He swiftly heals himself and unsheathing his sword, attempts to strike the girl, but she is as fast as him. She dodges every attack, and it may have ended badly for Ryo if she did not lose her concentration for a second, giving our protagonist enough time to wrestle her to the ground. The girl has cat-like ears which Ryo instantly recognizes as those belonging to a beast person. She begins to panic when the boy holds her down and assuming that he is about to kill her, she begins to scream out loud. Ryo has no choice but to use his magic to make her unconscious so that he could have a moment to think. He notices the metal collar around her neck and recalls that he read about it in a book where it was said to be used for submission. He breaks the collar, much to the girl's surprise when she wakes up. Turns out her name is Latifa and her story is also one of tragedy. She had also been on the bus on which Haruto was when it crashed. When she was reincarnated in this world, her brother locked her up in a dungeon and clasped the submission collar on her neck, using the young girl for his own amusement. Ryo recognizes that her brother is none other than Duke Huguenot, the shit stain in his class who had falsely accused him. I knew that guy was messed up, but a creep and a f***ed up sibling too. After listening to her story, Ryo suggests that, since she is free now, she should travel to a land where beast people like her would be seen as equals rather than treated as slaves. That kingdom would fall right in the way of his travels, and although he is hesitant in letting someone who just tried to kill him tag along, he decides against his better judgment after noticing the tears welling up in her eyes. Latifa enjoys Ryo's cooking and soon gets comfortable with the boy as well. That night, she talks in her sleep about Tokyo, which is how our MC realizes that she has suffered the exact same fate as him. However, he hopes that her sufferings have finally come to an end. One night when Latifa's nightmares are once again plaguing her, Ryo awakens and puts a spell on her so she may sleep peacefully. He then notices a disturbance outside of the tent and upon going outside, discovers a huge wolf staring at him. The wolf releases a huge orb of light that blinds our MC, and he is suddenly surrounded by a group of demi-humans. Since he can barely see, he uses his spirit energy to analyze his surroundings and realizes that he is greatly outnumbered. Since he is a human, the demi-humans are already wary of him because the rest of humanity is known for their torturous bloodlust. But when they find a sleeping Latifa in his tent on which they can sense a spell has been cast, they are even more enraged. They assume that Ryo is a kidnapper who is trafficking beast people, and without giving him a chance to explain, they knock him out. When our hero regains consciousness, he realizes that he has been chained to a bed with two of the demi-humans standing around him. However, in comparison to their previous rage, they now appear to look embarrassed. Latifa suddenly appears and rushes towards the boy, wrapping her tiny arms around his body. Turns out that once the girl had woken up, she had explained the entire situation to the demi-humans and how Ryo had been the one to save her from captivity. The demi-humans who attacked him fall to the ground in apology, while even one of their elders asks for forgiveness for the harsh treatment. Always the humble saint, he brushes off the apologies as a misunderstanding. The next morning, Ryo is escorted to the Council of the Elders by Ursula. On the way there, she shows off an enormous tree and explains that it can only be seen by those with strong spiritual energy. Surprisingly, our MC is able to view it clearly. The entire council once again apologizes for the rough treatment Ryo was shown and extend their gratitude for his kindness in saving Latifa. They then ask him what he would like to have as a sign of their thanks, to which the boy says that his only wish is to see Latifa safe and wishes for her to live in their kingdom. What a minor request. Boy should have been asking for a Lamborghini and a mansion, at least along with 3 hot demi-humans, considering the amount of disrespect he had to face. But to each their own, I guess. Their meeting is interrupted by the sudden appearance of Lady Dryas, the spirit of the world tree. Looking at Rio, she senses extremely strong spiritual energy inside of him, and even though it appears to be dormant for the time being, she explains that his potential is something to be feared. After giving our MC a huge ego boost, she disappears. Rio is then offered an invitation to stay in the village for the time being so that Latifa would settle down. Days pass as Rio gets into the routine of this new place. The grind never stops for our hero as he continues to train and even studies the books here with the hope of finding new knowledge. The demi-humans also help him work on his spiritual magic, which would give him a completely new dynamic in terms of his abilities. Meanwhile, the sorcerer who had been behind Princess Flora's kidnapping is up to no good once again. Along with an accomplice, he travels to a far-off cave and steals an egg belonging to a dangerous creature there. He convinces his accomplice that no harm would come out of this small act of crime. But as they are leaving, the man spies a huge group of dragons following them from afar. On the grand occasion of the Spirit Festival, the demi-humans invite Rio and Latifa to the stage to become official members of the village. A year has passed since they first arrived there, so honestly, it is about time. Lady Dryas kisses both of them on their forehead, and just like that, they have become members. Weird ceremony, to be honest. Imagine Trump kissing someone on the forehead to grant them citizenship. The demi-girls of the village go crazy during the festival, drinking booze after booze, and eventually they all gather around Rio. They mention how the boy has always been formal with them, and since they are friends now, he needs to learn to let loose sometimes. A very obvious blush rises to Rio's face as he has never been surrounded by so many females before, and his introverted personality kicks in as he begins to stutter. However, further embarrassment is spared as the girls then walk away to find more booze to drink. Crazy what alcohol does to a person, just ask the dudes from Hangover. Rio notices how happy and carefree Latifa appears to be, and he feels a sense of peace that he has fulfilled his responsibility. He talks to Ursula, who agrees that it is now the right time to announce his departure. Meanwhile, the Griffon carrying the sorcerer and his accomplice land in the forest next to the village. Handing the huge egg to his accomplice, the sorcerer instructs him to fly towards the village if he is faced with danger of any kind. He also gives the man a red stone which he says would protect him, which the accomplice then swallows. Didn't his mama teach him not to take edibles from strangers? Back at the village, Rio is having the most uncomfortable conversation of his entire life. He has just told Latifa that he plans to leave the village and that she cannot come along with him. Her eyes brim with tears and she refuses to listen to him, running away deep into the forest. Our MC contemplates on following her, but decides to give the girl some space. The higher-ups have now noticed an intrusion in their village and formulate a plan to track it down. Most of the demi-humans form a group and fly towards the forest where they track down the accomplice who refuses to give up any information and instead climbs on top of the griffin and attempts to fly away. The demi-humans follow him close behind, but they suddenly notice an entire group of dragon-like creatures known as wyverns flying towards the village. Panic ensues as word is sent to the village to escape before these demonic beings could create mass destruction. Rio is horrified when he learns what is going on and rushes into the forest, where he manages to save Latifa from a wyvern just in time. Such is the boy's power that he takes on the huge creature with just his bare hands, bitch slapping the dragon across its enormous face. Just as the wyvern is about to release a fireball, Rio forces its mouth shut and the blast self-combusts, instantly killing the creature. This was all part of the sorcerer's plan, as he got just enough time to go through the wyvern cave, while all of the creatures were gone to steal all of their eggs. Rio's show of heroism is rewarded generously by the demi-humans who gift him various magical artifacts and supplies which would help him on his journey. By now, even Latifa has realized that it is better if she stays in the village and grows stronger. With a loving embrace, they say their goodbyes as Rio flies off into the great unknown. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for part 2. And check out this other very interesting recap appearing on screen.